Welcome to Tough Conversations with David Wood, where play meets depth. We help teams and high-performing leaders like you to master your tough conversations so you succeed in your career and in your life. When we avoid tough conversations, we stay small. Teams stay disengaged, conflicted, and ultimately end up quitting. When we lean in and master our tough conversations, they become the defining moments that literally shape our careers, our relationships, and our lives. So let's dive in and master your next tough conversation so you can be the leader that you would follow. Let's play. Welcome back to another episode of Tough Conversations with David Wood. Do you know anyone who's worked with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk, sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed, or close museums in Florence for a private dinner party? Well, you do now. Steve Sims is a best-selling author with BLUEFISHING, The Art of Making Things Happen. He's a sought-after coach and a speaker to audiences including Harvard and, get this, the Pentagon. I am so jealous. Welcome, Steve Sims.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. You were referred to me, and I'm a bit picky about who I have on the show, I like to think. And I'm like, who is this guy? And I went and checked you out. I'm like, wow. So we're going to cover imperfections and the concept of perhaps your imperfections are imperfections. We're going to talk about asking for 100% of what you want and how do we get past that fear of no. But firstly, I want to know, can you give us a minute or two of the life that created Steve Sims? Like, what's your background and how did you get to be who you are now?
Well, we're going to talk about, based on my accent, we're obviously going to be talking about different countries and we're going to be name dropping, but the story's the same. The DNA of an entrepreneur is pretty much the same. We are misfits that we don't know where we fit until we fit. And I was the typical of that. I was an East London bricklayer. I left school at 15. My dad was a bricklayer. So at the age that I left school, bang, straight on the building site. And I was on the building site with my granddad, my uncles, and my cousins, and my dad. And I was thinking, is this it? You know, I can see my granddad in his 80s. I can see my cousins in their 20s. I can see my dad in his 40s. This is it. This is my timeline. And it was aggravation. I didn't know where I would fit. So I quit that job, much to the annoyance of my mum, who thought I was turning my back on the family. In fact, I remember my mum, and it was still horrible because we've never really had a good relationship since then. You never piss off an Irish mum. You know, they will hate you forever for it. But I remember her saying to me when I quit the business, she said, "Oh, you think you're better than us?" And I remember at the time saying, "No, I think I'm better than this. I don't think I'm better than you. I just think there's something better for me." But she never did accept it. And we never had a good relationship since that day, which was sad. But my dad was
they were upset that you left bricklaying to go and work with people like Sir Elton John.
Yes, and I'll give you the pinnacle day, the actual 100%, and I can even give you the time, 10:30 a.m. It was that pivotal a moment of mine. I had gone up the ladder and I had a bunch of bricks on my shoulder in what they call a hod. It's like this weird kind of bucket that carries bricks and breaks your back. And I climbed up this ladder. And as I climbed up to the ladder, I got on the scaffolding. The person next to me was my dad. Then it was his brother, then my cousins, and then my granddad. And so it was my entire family tree, minus my mum, was on this scaffolding. And it hit me that I saw my future all the way down to the end being my granddad. And I went down, and at 10 o'clock, we have a tea break. And you go into this old caravan to warm up because it's always raining in England. And I remember as a young kid going up to my granddad and asking him the kind of question that should have got me a punch in the mouth. But I walked up to my granddad and I said, "Hey, granddad, did you ever think you'll be doing this at your age?" It was quite a rude question, really. And granddad didn't even look at me. He just stopped drinking his tea, trying to warm up. And he said to me, "Son, and I remember this is 100% accurate. Son, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow." Oh. And then he went back drinking his tea. Never made eye contact with me. And I was like, shit. And then as the bell went off and everyone got out of the caravan to go back onto the site, I was like, Dad. And he's like, what? I went, I just spoke to Granddad and I said to him, do you ever think you're going to, you said, if you don't quit today, you're going to be minimal. And my dad looked over my shoulder and looked at Granddad. Granddad looked back at him. My dad just looked at me and he went, we're light-handed, finish up on Friday and then you're off. I was like, all right, okay. And that was it. And so my dad kind of, you could feel as though he knew and wanted me to try something else. And he looked at Granddad. I don't know if he had the same conversation with Granddad when he was a kid. You know, who knows? But I kind of got the idea that he was okay with it. But boy, when we got home and he told Mum that, oh yeah, Steve's off on Friday, she's like, what do you mean? This is how we've been in the building industry for 4 million years. How dare he think that?
Wow.
And she just kicked off. And ever since then, and I ended up working for Ferrari, just to quickly name drop Ferrari, loads of other big events. And I was living in Hong Kong and Switzerland. And when I went back to England, Ferrari lent me a car. You know, part of the deal was I got to drive a Ferrari in any country I was in. And I took it back to my dad. So I was like, look, Dad, you always want it. He was like, oh, yeah. Mum, she made a point of not being impressed with anything. You know, my dad was like, oh, can I have a go? And I'm like, you get in there, Dad. You go for a drive. My mum was like,
what a powerful story. I got goosebumps all over my body when you talked about your granddad saying, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow. In fact, that sounds like a hell of a title for another book if you decide to write that one.
It really does. It really does. And it's as I say, it was 10:30 in the morning. It was such a pivotal moment. And I've often gone back in my head and I thought to myself, I wondered if I hadn't have gone to work that day, or I wondered if I hadn't have walked up that ladder and seen my granddad. Because we usually were on different areas of the building site. But on this one day, we just happened to be on the same scaffolding line. And, you know, again, something could have happened that meant that moment didn't happen to me, and therefore I didn't happen.
Yeah. So how did you go from bricklaying to creating events with Sir Elton John and speaking at the Pentagon and making experiences that some people don't even dream of? How did that happen?
So once I finished that company, once I finished the building site, I tried everything. You know, I tried door-to-door sales. I tried insurance. I tried phone rooms. I tried delivering cakes. I was a truck driver. I tried so many different things. And I would go to work for a new job at 9 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd come home at 1 and would be like, no, that's not for me. And my mum was like, you've got no staying power. You've got no loyalty. You know, you're going to go to prison. But I just had to find something to work. And the funny place, you know, life's weird. I found the answer to everything working as a doorman of a nightclub. And the weird thing was, we've got this, and it's a cliche statement where they say you are the combination of the people that you hang around with, your 5 friends, you know, that one. And I thought to myself, my 5 mates are broke-ass bikers. They've got no money. They got no direction. We want to ride around in motorcycles, scared of grannies. You know, that was it. Surely I've got to surround myself with different people. So I made a conscious decision then. I need 5 different friends. You know, now I didn't want to turn my back on my mates, but I needed 5 more people around me. So working on the door, I started playing a game. Do I want to be friends with them? Do I want to be friends with them? And we used to, as a doorman, and no one wants to talk to the doorman. The doorman's there just to give you a thump if you've got out of hand inside. So no one ever wants to make friends with you. They want to make friends with everyone else, just not the doorman. But I would, as the doorman, I knew where all the nightclubs were. I knew when they were having celebrity entrances. I knew when they were having the appearances. I knew the new clubs that were opening up, the premiere. I knew all of this because I was the doorman. So I used to go up to the guys that I wanted to be friends with, affluent, young, well-dressed, cool, suave, expensive watches, the complete opposite to me. And I needed to give them a reason to want to talk to me, not fear me, to connect with me. So I'd be like, hey, boys, you know, I've seen you coming to these clubs a few nights. Have you heard about this one going on around the corner next Tuesday? And they'd be like, no, I haven't. I'd be like, well, so-and-so's turning up. do you want me to see if I can make a phone call and get you in? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, please. And so I would do, all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, Steve, I became the guy that knew about all the clubs. But the only reason I was doing it was because I wanted to know rich people. And here's the funny thing. I wanted this to enable me to be able to go, okay, now that we've formed a relationship, Roger, why are you rich and I'm not? Why are you affluent and I'm not? You know, why can you afford anything and I can't? Because I would literally play the grocery lotto game. I would ride around the grocery store with me basket, literally in my head counting up the cents of everything going in my basket because I knew how much was on my debit card and I didn't want it to go again. So I would see these guys go into bars and just throw down credit cards and not even check the bar tab. You know, I wanted to be so rich that I never had to check the bar tab. So I needed to find people, and that's how it started. I started off by introducing affluent people because, again, this is rude, but why circle yourself around with poor people when they can't afford anything? If you circle yourself around affluent people, then you get introduced to a new way of life. So I knew straight away, I'm not going to market myself to poor people, which is the first mistake a lot of people do. I'm going to market myself to the really, 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 really rich.
Yeah,
You know?
I get that it might seem rude, but also it seems very practical. Like if you've only got room for so many people in your life and you get some choice about it, why not choose people who are happy? Why not choose people who are wealthy? Why not choose people who are attractive if you're going to skew your life that way anyway? And I figure, why not? So you sound like a practical man.
I think I definitely am. I'm definitely simple, and I don't take that as any offense, but I am incredibly simple. I wear black T-shirts all the time because I don't have to think. I just grab a T-shirt, there you go, it's done. I haven't got any other colored T-shirts. So I'm a very simple thinking person. I also don't plan very far ahead. I plan for the moment. So my idea was to get these people. It went from introducing them to clubs to doing my own parties. And then I was, well, how can I make this bigger? I always had the McDonald's can you add fries mentality to it. How can I make this bigger? How can I make this better? So I went from clubs to yachts to penthouses to celebrities. And then as I was creating events, I had people coming to me going, hey, we're Cartier. We want to throw an event for a new collection. Can you help us? So I ended up with working with some of the biggest events in the world, Sir Elton John's Oscar party, the New York Fashion Week, the Kentucky Derby, Formula One Monaco with Ferrari, Cartier Stade. I started working with some of the biggest, and of course,
wow,
who did they have in their network? Rich people. So it was a constant sign. And then they would say to me, oh, I want to play drums with Guns N' Roses. And I'd be like, let me make it happen. And I would go out and see what do I need to do to connect with Guns N' Roses to make this happen. And I became, the funny thing is, Forbes did an article on me and called me the real life Wizard of Oz, which just perpetuated this thing. So, but it all started from trying to get a network of affluent people that I could ask, how are you affluent? And I'm not. And without realizing it, I built up a whole marketing, branding, the man that can kind of thing.
Right. So I want to break that down for myself and our listeners. It sounded like you began by doing favors for people. You were giving.
No. Let me stop you there straight off the bat.
Okay.
Favors carry an interest rate bigger than any mafia loan shark. Okay. I sold whatever you needed. So I would have people come to me and I would say to them, hey, I can get you in next week. Do you want me to do it? And they'd be like, yes. And then I would come back to them 20 minutes later because I already knew I could get them in. I'd be like, all right, I made a phone call. I pulled a favor, $200 each. I made sure right from the word go that you paid for absolutely everything. I have a thing on my website where if you want to talk to me, it's half hour for $750. The thing is, if people don't pay, they don't pay attention. And so even if it was $10, I would make people pay. If I'm doing a charity event or if I'm doing a free event, I'll say, hey, you can come along to my free event, but you got to donate $10 to that charity over there. You know, so I charge for absolutely everything. And I'm surprised how many people don't actually ask for money.
Wow. All right. So that's 4 points I want to bring out here. One is that you would help people. You'd be
Yes.
like, I'm going to hook you up and
Yeah.
I'm going to make an introduction. I'm going to get you in here. The second thing I wrote down is that you started questioning the wealthy people.
Yes.
How do you have this and I don't? What can I learn from you? The third thing I got is you're building relationships. Every time you're helping someone else and doing something, you're getting to know more people, and then you become the hub. So it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the fourth thing is that you're charging for it. You're not just, I'll scratch your back and maybe later you'll scratch mine. You're like, yes, I can help you. This is what it will cost you. So I love that. I'm so curious about, you seem to have a mindset about making things happen. Now, yes, you have your network. Maybe that's the only answer, but I want to know if there are more answers because how can our listeners make things happen for themselves? And I want to maybe put you on the spot a little bit. I'm curious, there's something I want. I was thinking as I prep for this interview, what's a great experience I want to create? And I wonder if Steve can help me make it happen. So my question for you is, if I want to get Alan Alda to appear on my show or be on his show, I don't really care. I'm just a massive fan of the guy. How would you go about it, or recommend that anybody go about making something extraordinary like that happen? Or do we give up because we don't have your network?
I have an incredible network now, but I didn't then.
Right.
And it didn't stop me. Okay. So it's easier for me now. I can make one text now, but also when I was doing this was the 90s. So I didn't have things like Instagram, Twitter, any kind of social feed. You can literally go out today, now, on Twitter or on any other social feed and reach out to Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. And if your statement is interesting enough, maybe even get a response. Okay, so I never had that. I had to find out an angle. So I discovered very early on the most powerful, aggressive, offensive, confrontational word that I would use to death. And I still use it now. And the question is, why? Now, if someone says to you, and people will text me and they go, oh, Steve, I want to take you out for a beer tomorrow night. And I'll just respond back with why. Now, some people will go, well, that's rude, No, I want to know why. Why is it important for you to want to invite me out for a beer? Why are you offering me this beer? Are you going to pitch me a proposal for a business? Are you going to just talk to me? Are we going to share inappropriate jokes? Is your wife out and we're just going to hang out for the night? I just want to know why. Now, it's a rude word, but let's focus on you with your goal. Let's take your goal, your experience, all right? First off, as I've already said, why? Now, before we get twisted on it, understand that you've got an ask. You want to be on Alan's show, or you want Alan to be on your show. You've got an ask. So the why isn't, what do you want? We already know clearly what you want. You want to be connected with Alan, okay? But what's the why for him?
Right. Yeah.
You see, we already know why you want him. Why would he want to be on your show? Now, a lot of people, they play the game from the wrong side of the fence. Whenever I go to someone, I create the why for them. So whenever I went to Elton John and talked about the Oscar party, I went forward and said, hey, I know you've got this charity. I can bring bigger players. I can bring people that will spend more money on the auction. I can generate greater buzz. In fact, I can make this event bigger than it's been before and therefore raise more money for the AIDS research. Would that be of interest to have me in your circle? So I'm creating a why. You see, today, they always say, you got to get your foot in the door. As I've just explained with Twitter, you can get your foot in the door with absolutely anyone on the planet. The goal today is to become so irresistible that they invite you in and don't want you to leave.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, with Alan, you've got to think, what is Alan working on? What is Alan doing? What is Alan's passion points? What is his triggers? Is he involved in a local school charity? Is he releasing a new book? Is he now supporting a cause?
He's really big on the education of science and on authentic communication and relating, which is actually one of my biggest fields. Like I do tough conversations and authentic relating. So we have a real common area there. I'm just still looking for like, what would, maybe he wants to talk about authentic relating on an authentic relating podcast. Maybe that's it. Can you think of an even bigger wire that someone who can interview Katie Couric and, you know?
Well, I don't know, Alan. Before we scattergun this, and you're doing what a lot of people do. They scattergun. For a start, anytime you do any relationship I have ever gone after, I've gone after with pinpoint accuracy. So if you want Alan Alda, then don't start thinking about Katie Couric. Katie Couric is a different passion play. Okay, so think about what are the 5 things that would make Alan get out of bed. You know, what are the 5 things that would excite him? And which one of those could I enhance? Which one of those could I add value to? Like you've said about the power of communication, okay? Does he go on podcasts and talk about the power of communication? If not, you're now providing him with a platform. Alan, I believe and have been listening to you talking about the power of authentic communication. And I'm a great fan. I'm also talented in this region. And I like to offer you a platform to discuss this in greater length to a wider community. Would that be of interest? The bottom line of it is, whenever you go to your friend's parents' house at the weekend, you bring something to the party, don't you? Whenever you go to your mate's dinner party, you bring a pudding, you bring a dessert, you bring a starter. What can I bring? I can bring a bottle of wine. Whenever you go to the party, you bring something. For some reason, people think in conversations, they don't need to bring anything to the party. Every single one of my conversations has had one simple goal: to turn that conversation into a relationship. And to turn it into a relationship, I got to bring something to the party.
I love that. I love it. So it's really like, what's in it for them? That's the real question.
That's the only thing. I closed down a museum in Florence, the Accademia Museum, and I organized a dinner party for 6 people at the feet of Michelangelo's David, and I had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade them while they were eating the pasta. And the way that this kicked off was I found out that the Accademia Museum was having a gala in 9 months' time to raise money for the roof because it needed roof repair. And so when I contacted them, I said, hey, my name's Steve Sims. You've never heard of me before, probably. I realize you've got a gala coming up in 9 months because you've got to repair the roof. Yes, that's correct. I have an ask, but with this ask, I could actually get 1/3 of your raise actually covered before you even start the paperwork for the gala. Nice. Would that be of interest? And they were like, yeah, who's going to say no? I found out why. Now, they were already invested in me. I told them I had an ask, but I didn't tell them what it was. Before I even got to that, oh, by the way, could you close down at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and give me your entire museum until midnight? Before I even got into that, they were already looking at getting 1/3 of that budget covered before they'd printed the flyers.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from this is put some attention on the person, do a little bit of research, find out what they want so that you can help them. And it's so common for humans to be self-centered. You know, I'd be like, oh, I want Alan, you know, whatever. But put some time and attention. I could listen to, I barely listened to some of his episodes. I could go and listen to a bunch. I could research. I've just subscribed to his newsletter, find out what the guy wants, and then reach out and say, hey, I'd like to offer to help you do this. And maybe I can share my why as well. You know, he's one of the top 3 people in the world that I've admired since I was 10. So I could share that. But I love it, Steve. That's very powerful.
But the thing is, he already knows your why. You see, here's the weird thing. And I know this sounds funny, but imagine this. At 7 o'clock tonight, you get a phone call. Before you've picked that phone up, you are guaranteed that the person on the other end of the phone wants something. Why? Because they phoned you. It could be your mum for a natter. It could be your local Chinese restaurant saying that, you left your credit card there. It could be a best mate to tell you that he's just got married. Whatever it is, they contacted you, so you know full well they've got something.
Right.
Because they initiated it. So when you contact Alan, before saying anything, and we're going to go back and you can rewind this, before saying anything, they already know you want something of them. They already know it. They don't know what it is. That's why, and if you rewind this, you'll hear me. I say, hey, my name's Steve Sims, and you've probably never heard of me before, and I have an ask. I've got the elephant out of the room already, okay? Because you already know I have an ask, but now I've declared it. I've got an ask, but I want to focus on this element. And then I've gotten passionate. People are suspicious. Wow. People in a profile are suspicious. I've been stood next to, and I won't name names, a very, very, very famous American actor, okay? And I was at an Oscar party, and we're talking about motorbikes, and we're shooting the shit, and we are just two bike guys just chilling out. Just happens to be he's a billionaire and I'm not. And he's a world face and can't walk down the road without getting mobbed. And as we're talking, out of the corner of his eye, and it catches me and I notice, someone starts walking directly for him. Now, he knows that person's going to ask him something because he's made laser contact and he's coming in. My friend, all of a sudden, his body posture changes. Why? Because he's now guarded. Is this person looking for a selfie? Is this person going to try and get on a movie with me? Is this person a film producer that wants me in that film? What's going on? It's not necessarily bad, but you imagine anyone as an influencer or anyone in the public eye, you now know that this person wants something, and in your head you're going, why is it's like coronavirus? We're not too much worried about the coronavirus. We're more worried about the unknown element of it. What's the world going to be like afterwards? How long is it going to last? What's the impact? It's all these unknowns. As human beings, we don't like the unknown. So my celebrity friend starts clamping up. He's now a different person, both in the way he presents, the way he speaks, the way he stands, because he's guarded. If you can get that guard down quick by going, hey, I don't want to disturb your name. My name's Steve Sims. You probably never even heard of me. That's an obvious thing, but don't you realize how it kind of lowers the guard because it's stating the obvious? And you're probably wondering why I'm talking to you. Well, I ain't got cakes for sale, and I'm not trying to get you to walk on my movie. I'm in this, and you get it out the way quick. I make introductions real fast, real direct, to remove any kind of concern as to why I'm in their face.
I love that. You're setting context. You're making the implicit explicit. If I do write another book, I think it's going to be called Name That Thing. Like name the elephant in the room, name the mouse in the room. I have an ask. You probably haven't heard of me. By the way, I love how you said probably, because that puts in their mind, oh, maybe I should have heard of this guy.
Yep.
And you're quite a master at setting context. I've been hearing it during this interview. You'll say up front, all right, this might sound rude, and then you say it. You're like speaking. Landmark Education used to say, you're speaking into somebody's listening. So I'm really appreciating that. Look, Steve, while we've still got a little bit of time left, I want to ask you, in the pre-interview, you talked about your imperfections are your perfections. And I'm curious, could you say more about that?
Yeah, we've become desensitized. We'll watch a movie and, someone's head will be sliced off, or a building will fall over, or a car will fly in the air, and we will just watch it. Yet we will be walking down the road and two cars will just run into each other at 5 miles an hour on a slow fender bender. And we'll be like, ooh, real life has a greater impact, and it has a greater impact because it's not perfect. You don't run into another car and it explodes into a million pieces. It just doesn't do that. So I'm a great believer that everyone is constantly searching for this perfection. And I'm a greater believer, and I don't want to be crude, but one of my old little jokes I say on stage is that perfection is a blue unicorn with 3 testicles. It doesn't exist. And I believe that when people realize that it's what makes us imperfect, what our imperfections and our flaws are, is the perfection, we get the impact. Now, if you remember a few years ago, magazines had these beautiful pictures of beautiful women walking across the beach that had been photoshopped to the point that they were now like 80 pounds in weight and about 7'1" tall. It was just distorting our eyeballs of what reality was. And Dove was the first one, the cosmetics company, the soap company, that turned around and said, we're using real people. You know, they've got bad hair days. Why? Because we have bad hair days. They got a spot on their cheek. Why? Because we all get spots on the cheek. When you see a movie and it's in Cinecolor and all these Dolby and it's all overly edited and looks perfect, that's great. But when you see an iPhone video of someone falling off of a porch and it's on like American Funniest Videos, the fact that it's recorded on something that you're used to using and it's jittery and it wobbles, you can relate to it. So imperfection is relatable because we're all imperfect.
Wow, what timing. I just coached a vice president at a big company right before this, and the issue was trying to appear like I've got it all together and that I never fail and all of that. And I was like, well, can you open into the idea that sometimes you're going to screw up, instead of trying to present all the time, like white knuckle it, that no, I'm perfect all the time. So you're talking to the right guy. So what you're suggesting is, I think, is that instead of trying to pretend and trying to be like those airbrushed models or even those cartoon figures, you see the cartoon figures in Disney, the women have got huge eyes,
massive,
you know, and their hips are so narrow. It's just, you know, crazy. And you're suggesting instead of trying to be that, if we can actually show ourselves warts and all, that we're more relatable.
We're also more relaxed. You see, the beauty is it takes zero effort to be me. But if I was to try to be you, you're using words that I can't even spell, okay? If I was to try and be you, it would come across as not real, unauthentic.
Right.
And it would also come across as confusing. Now, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to use language that is natural to you, but not natural to me. But that element from the person talking to me, now I'm trying to use your language, in their head, or more in their stomach, in their gut. I've often said my gut is far more intelligent than my head. There's something there going, well, this guy's trying to sound smarter than he is. And I would be diminished. I would be cast aside because I'm trying to be someone I'm not. Why use any effort in being you? If people come to me and they want my help, I don't want to surprise them by, well, this is a guy in black t-shirt that can't use big words. You know, I want them to come to me because I can do X, Y, Z. Yeah. I don't want to have any confusion whatsoever. And I think today we talk about the big C in life being cancer. The big C in business is confusion. Never confuse anybody by trying to be anybody that you're not. Why go to that effort? It's just not necessary.
Right. You're also confusing yourself.
Yes. And that's even worse.
Like, who am I and what can I do? And what, yeah, I love it. Well, Steve, like, what surprised me about this interview, and maybe it shouldn't, was the level of mastery you have around authentic communication and authentic relating. Now, you might just call it, I'm just being me. I'm just naming what is. I'm being honest. I see it as integrity and a whole lot of complex words I could throw around it as well. And we do. In the authentic relating community, we call creating context. We use all these fluffy words. But basically, there's congruence. When you are you, I can feel it. And it's like, oh, right, this guy, this is who he is. And you tell the bricklayer narrative is awesome because I'm trying to fit you in to the world you're in. And I'm like, wait a minute, you look like you could have stepped out of prison, to be honest. You look like a Hell's Angels biker. And by the way, I used to have a Honda Shadow, and I miss it so much. But I look at you and I was like, whoa, this guy's got a piercing, and, you know, I can't relate it to the Elton John thing. And then as soon as you say,
I was a bricklayer. I've done truck driving. I was a bouncer. I did all that stuff. And then here's the narrative. There's no fakery. It's just, this is who I am. So I'm really enjoying that about you.
Thank you. Thank you. The one thing that I would only change slightly is I don't think I'm really good at communicating. I just think the world's got really bad at
it. Well, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Perfect. Exactly. I told you, you can say things prettier than me.
So you're looking pretty good to me. I'll tell you that. Steve, where can we could keep talking. I'm really enjoying this, but I know we've both got things to do, other things to do. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. stevedsims.com, D for dog, and there's only one M in Sims. But you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, on Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims. So I'm pretty easy to find. So if you just Google up or just go on any of the Facebook, LinkedIn's using Steve Sims, you'll find me. I'm the handsome dude with the piercing.
That's you. Well, Steve, I hope we get to have a beer or a chai tea or whatever you're into sometime. Thanks for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for your time.
You've been listening to Tough Conversations with David Wood. Now it's action time. Mastering your tough conversations will have a major impact on your team, your company, and you as a high-performing executive or entrepreneur. If you're ready, request a discovery session with me at playforreal.life so we can transform your team, your company, and you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love you to help me spread this message of tough conversations in a very simple way. Just leave a public review at playforreal.life/podcast. And you may hear me read it out loud and thank you live on a future podcast. Now, let's play.